How do you like my collar today? I mean, between that and my hair, I look like a rockabilly star from the 70s. My God. Or just some crazy person. Both. Today, might be a rambling video, as opposed to most of these car videos, which are rambling, in a good way. Even though it might be rambling, if you are into this topic we're going to discuss, I think it could be helpful for you. Pretty relevant. Having trouble figuring out where to put my coffee. I actually don't usually bring my coffee in with me. I did this morning. I'm very interested in my coffee this morning. So what I want to discuss is this. Or a couple side notes first. Rambling, like I said. A lot of these topics, if you're new to this channel or just like, I don't know, whatever, you just found this video randomly or what have you. I have a podcast, which I've done for almost 2 years now. There's, I think, 96 episodes now. I will put a link below in the description. If you want to hear my ideas and the different stuff I talk about explained in a much more straightforward, less rambling fashion, a more meditative fashion, generally speaking, check out my podcast because it's got a very different vibe than this. Very different vibe. One reason that I'm so unserious often in these videos, and we're going to discuss more about this today, but one reason I'm so unserious and people are like, oh, you're not taking these ideas seriously enough sometimes, is because my podcast is not at all like that. It's like a much more subdued, serious exploration of manifesting. Much more. I mean, there's just not a lot of shows like it. And I don't say that to toot my own horn. There's just not a lot of shows like it, period. So look at that. That's much more clear. As are my books. My books are much more refined than these car videos. But some people like this wackiness. Some people like this zaniness. And this, unstrangely, ties into what I want to discuss today, which is something that I'm guilty of, and that we see all the time in the manifesting law of assumption, law of attraction, community, is this idea of like, trying to change our state or like refocus, right? Like we have a desire, we have something we want, or even if we just want something very general, like peace, feeling relaxed, or feeling love, or feeling in flow, even if it's something as general as that. We want that, and, the day goes along, and a bunch of shit is happening, and we don't feel what we want, right? And so it's like the general advice, and I give this advice too. I'm guilty of this, like I said. It's like, well, just take a minute, or take a few seconds, pause, and feel into what you want. And then you can touch it, right? Some. You might be able to touch it some. Maybe touch it some. And that's really helpful, just to have that pause and to do that when you need to throughout the day, right? But what I want to get at a little bit more today is that just doing that is often not enough to really touch that depth. Like if you want peace in your life, or you want to feel deeply relaxed, and I give those examples because that's like generally like my main general focus, right? Just doing an exercise, like if I got a bunch of shit going on, like I'm writing emails or like, talking to somebody and like, one of my kids is crying, and there's, and I got to go to the grocery store. If I got a lot of stuff going on and it's just like, Tim, pause for a second and feel peace. I can do that. And again, that does something, that touches something, that's good. But then I got a bunch of other shit going on, right? I still have a lot of stuff that I, quote unquote, have to do. And quite literally have to do a lot of the time. Like if I have a kid screaming next to me, like there's something that I want to do about that, If I have a call, I have to answer the phone, blah, 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 something like that. So I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we think, well, that's all there is to it when we're like going throughout the day, is touching that piece and that's it. Like this has something to do with like superficiality and depth of like feeling. Because, how kind of like my, how I got into a lot of these ideas, like my back door type of entry into the law of attraction was connecting some of the stuff that people like Neville talk about, Neville Goddard, the law of assumption. Well, like stuff that Neville talks about, with the stuff that I was into before that, mind-body stuff and feeling differently quickly. Because what I found in my own life and then with working with people, and I've written about this in, I did a whole video series called Stop Being Serious before I got into these ideas. And then since I got into these ideas, I've written about this in my short guides, Wild Calm and The Joy of Not Thinking. I'll put the links below in the description for both those books. How I got into this was that there's like this mind-body connection between how we feel and how we think. And that has interested me for a long, long time. That's how I got into like counseling and alternative stress management, all that stuff. Not the law of attraction. That's not how I got into working with people. And what I found, generally speaking, for me, for sure, and a lot of people I've worked with, is just like, it's great, again, to like touch into like, all right, I want to feel more relaxed. I just kind of touch into that and I can like sense that some. But it's a pretty superficial solution. And the reason that I say it's often a superficial solution is because when you really move your body or really do something outrageous, which is what I talk about in Stop Being Serious, talk about it in Wild Calm, talk about it in The Joy of Not Thinking, you can really move your body. You can get fucking crazy. If you do something like that, if you really move, now I seem really rockabilly. If you really move like that for a minute or two, I would say that's probably going to do more to affect your state a lot of the time than just being like, I feel peace for like a couple seconds or whatever. Now, everybody's different. But like a real state shakeup, to change your state, to get your state from a place where you feel stuck or feel resistance or feel lack to a space where you feel more neutrality or openness or peace. That shift, a lot of the time you want to engage your whole body in it. And even when you engage your whole body in it, I've just, just to be honest with you, it's not going to be a lasting shift usually. It's like you have to do it over and over again in different ways. So we're constantly shifting. We're constantly refocusing throughout the day. And what I'm getting at here is that all these shifts are very, very helpful. And they just keep us focused on what we really want. And again, that can be very general things like peace, love, harmony in my life. Or it can be like very specific things like, I want to make X amount of dollars, this month. Or like, I want to improve my business this month. Or I want to meet a partner within the next month or two. Or what, it can be specific things like that. Or like, I want to go from being X amount of pounds to X amount of pounds. But whether it's specific or general, I think this idea of shifting, regularly shifting throughout the day when you feel like it and just staying focused is a very good way to go about applying these principles in your life. And this is something that I want to really emphasize here. You're going to feel like crap some of the time, or a lot of the time. Probably when you're trying to shift and feel better and you don't feel better. We have to be more patient with ourselves. So like, let's say it's like, the cliche advice, the advice that I sometimes give, like, just take a minute and feel peace, right? Let's say you try to do that. You've got a busy fucking day, a bunch of shit's going on. You don't feel that good. And you just try to feel that peace for a minute. You might not be able to touch that, or you can touch it barely touch it, just a little bit, just glance it, and then you have to go about doing the rest of your day and there's a bunch of shit going on. That's more what it's like a lot of time, isn't it? It's not just like, oh, I'm going to touch that piece for a minute and then my life is just bliss for the next couple hours. It's like, oh no, I might be able to touch that piece a little bit and then all shit breaks loose again, but I can keep on touching that piece as I go through the day. More radical approaches to doing that are like, all right, I feel like I'm having a busy day. I want to try to touch that piece. I'm going to go to my car and just scream and blast music for a minute or two to try to touch that something different in my mind, to shift into a more neutral, open, abundant attitude. These more drastic shifts, which we can do by doing this kind of stuff I talk about in Wild Calm, Stop Being Serious and the Joy of Not Thinking, they can be more profound because we're getting our body more actively going while we're doing it. But the point is, we're still like going in and out of it. We still are like feeling stress and then kind of like calming ourselves down, feeling stress, calming ourselves down. And we have to be, I would say, generally speaking, more patient dealing with our stress, where it's like, oh, the stress is here. I know if I have to, I can get rid of it, but it's here right now. I'm noticing it. I'm noticing how I'm feeling. Maybe I'm even feeling into the feelings, like we often talk about, feeling into the feelings, feeling into the resistance, seeing the shadow, right? And working with the shadow. I notice that stuff. Maybe I don't have to be so like, drastic about trying to shift that. Maybe I can just feel into that and feel into that quote unquote stress and not freak out about it, knowing that I can shift out of it at any time if I focus on doing it. If I focus on shifting out of this stress, I can shift out of it to a more neutral position. But if I'm in it right now, it's okay. Because that's the truth as far as I'm concerned. It's all fucking good. To use spiritual language, God doesn't fucking care. It's all good, man. You know? Rockabilly, 1974. It's all good as far as God's concerned. The reason when you like move your body like crazy for a couple minutes, the reason why that works well is because you realize it's all good. You are not you in the way you usually think. But that stress momentarily being there and trying to shift to a more neutral state, you don't have to force yourself or stress yourself out about doing it. One thing that David Hawkins talks about in letting go is like initially, and a lot of the time still, even if you get into this stuff, there's resistance, not just to the resistance, but there's resistance to the resistance of letting go. Like there's resistance to letting go. Letting go means like the stress is there. It's okay. It's okay. It's all good, man. We don't have to always be so worried about, oh, I feel bad. I got to shift into a more neutral, open, abundant state. You can use all these tools that we always talk about to do that, but it's okay to just be like, the stress is here. I don't feel that good. It's okay. The man in the sky said it's okay. Obviously, that's a joke. But, it's all good. It's not God overlooking you and saying you're good still. It's more like you just realize you're already okay even when you feel like shit. You already are okay when you feel like shit. When you do something like touch the peace within you for a minute, that's the realization. Oh, I already am okay. When you shake your body and go crazy for a couple minutes, that's the realization. Oh, I already am okay right now. I already am okay right now. In the podcast, when it's much more meditative, that's what we're always talking about. You're okay right now. You're always okay. But when you realize, because we imagine that we're not okay. But when we realize that we are okay, and it's just our thinking and our imagining, thinking it's not okay, imagining it's not okay, when we realize that, we feel peace and we are okay because we're always okay. This is a fucking good video. I hope that some people understood it. If you have questions, let me know. RadicalCounselor.com